Well, the thing was, the original report said it was coated in bentonite, and that was put
so
forth
that's wrong.
It is wrong, and it was put forth by ABC News correspondent Brian Ross. There was no bentonite in that, but it was very useful because U.S. intelligence had identified bentonite as a additive that the Iraqis had. So you see how the administration began to say, there's an Iraqi connection because of this bentonite connection.
Well, stay there, gentlemen. I want to go over this. Anthrax war. We've got to go to break. When we come back, I want to go through the evidence that it's an inside job or a cover-up. But also, what were the motives? Was it an aborted false flag to blame Iraq? Where did the trail lead? Folks, if you look at the Anthrax attacks, there's no doubt this is an inside job. And then the question is, what's the motive? And this film is really well done. Everybody needs to see Anthrax War. I mean, the White House, Ari Fleischer admitting that much of the White House was on Cipro starting September 10th through the attacks, but nobody else was when they knew it was going to be going through the Capitol mail system and some of it to the White House. I mean, this is really, really suspicious. But that's only one area. Going back to our guests, the makers of Anthrax War, Bob Coen and Eric Nadler, you guys know how to tell this story best. You guys have got the floor. This is a short segment. Long one's coming up. Run through what the film covers, the evidence, and bottom line, what your conclusion is, what the anthrax attacks really were in Anthrax War.
Well, the deal is one has to look at who benefited and who gained ultimately from the anthrax attacks. When the FBI named lone mailman Bruce Ivins as their guy, they said he had a profit motive, $2,000 government contracts or whatever, to get the anthrax vaccine that he was working on in Fort Detrick, Maryland, to be reinvigorated and put forth for the U.S. Military troops. We asked a legitimate question. If they're saying profit motive for a lone gunman, who really made money off these attacks? And we have to be careful here. We're not really pointing any fingers, but we're suggesting that one looks at what is the real legacy of the anthrax attacks. And without a doubt, within the last few years, the U.S. government, in the wake of the anthrax attacks, has leased $50 to $60 billion in what they call biodefense contracts to fight against bioterrorism. And one of the things we do in the film, and one of the things we do in the book, is begin to examine the corporate connections. Who's making the money? Who's making the $50 to $60 billion? And once the FBI lets the profit motive as the attack lay into Ivins, we think that's a real legitimate place to look. And in the book, we spend a lot of time looking at very politically wired corporations that have benefited, no doubt, through government contracts in the government response to the anthrax attacks.
Absolutely. And, in fact, expanding on that, and I want Mr. Coen's take on this as well, and of course yours, Mr. Nadler, is, as you said, $50+ billion for BioShield and other programs, level 4 bioweapons labs in major cities, expanding the U.S. bioweapons program in a cover for bioweapon defense. Even mainstream news has admitted that. They wouldn't have gotten all of this if it wasn't for the anthrax attacks. They got all those major contracts and that policy shift in the war on terror right after the anthrax attack.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly that has been one concrete result of the anthrax attacks, is the birth of what we describe as the bioterror military-industrial complex. And the other troubling thing about all this is that what used to be the domain of secret government programs is now privatized. So we have private corporations who are doing this classified research that's going on in private labs, in university labs, in private research foundations all around the country. People have no idea what's going on in those labs. There's very little oversight, and because of a lot of this is actually private, there's really no way of finding out what's going on in those labs because a lot of that is protected by trade secrets. So there are a lot of very, very troubling questions, and a lot of experts, scientists that we spoke to all around the world who are very, very concerned about all this, because we have to remember one thing: the world of germ weapons, there's very little difference. The line between what is offensive bioweapons research and defensive research is very blurry. We have to remember offensive biological weapons are actually outlawed by international treaties. Only defensive research is allowed. But in order to develop...
We got a break. Long segment coming up. Plenty of time for both of you to go through this story. But I don't want to miss the elephant in the room here. The government of the United States, England, you name it, have been caught over and over again testing radiologicals, chemicals, biologicals on their own populations, including lethal pathogens on foster children, veterans, the military, minorities. So